Test, 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 test. Check. 2, 3, 4, 5.
Let's see if we hear it. We're good.
Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out otheanthem.com. It's where you can find everything O The Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/O The Anthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/O The Anthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Cheap.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at O The Anthem on all your social networks. Oh, right, sorry.
But I think if anybody is definitely in place for a massive reshuffling of what a police department looks like, especially a large city police department, it's the LAPD.
Garcetti has taken $150 million and reallocating it to social programs.
That is equivalent to about 5% of what the LAPD budget was. We were talking about
of the increase this year to the budget.
They're not doing the increase. Thank God. They originally Garcetti was going to give them $1.8 billion. He decided to stick with the $1.1 billion they're currently making, and has decided to cut $1 to $150 million of that, to which police officers all across LA County, from their homes in Simi Valley, are screaming bloody murder, saying you don't care about us. And the LAPD here, the videos have been coming out of police responding to protests of police brutality with police brutality, and I feel like there's been nowhere quite like LA and New York in the video evidence of this, because New York PD's got people like ramming SUVs through crowds. LAPD's got people doing literal fucking drive-bys of people standing on the corner.
Yeah,
like
who are just wearing masks. And I get it. Any other time it might have been a protest.
It literally looked like a filmed scene. Like, it was so beautifully shot, showing the LAPD SUV pulling up to the corner, a cop with riot gear sticking out. Was it like a paintball gun or something?
Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen the video,
what was it? One of those
airsoft?
Yeah, something like that.
No, so it's a paintball gun. So as the vehicle is riding past the camera guy, the guy in the back seat pops out the window as if it was there for filming.
Yeah.
And doesn't even notice the camera, and they slide to a stop at the corner where he peppers the people standing on the corner.
Yeah.
So the reason they use a paintball is because, so they call them rubber bullets, and the news has been saying non-lethal rounds, but they're actually technically referred to as less lethal rounds.
Yeah.
Because as we
when
learned,
used properly, which is shot at the ground, not directly in somebody's face.
As we've learned this week, when you catch one of those in the dome, it can still kill you. If you catch one in the chest, it can still kill you. So another less lethal, but actually probably more like non-lethal weapon, is a pepper bomb, which is about like a paintball, and just has capsaicin or inside of it. So when it hits you, it bursts, and then you get hit in the face with all
Pepper,
the
yeah.
pepper stuff, and that acts as pepper spray, but it's more controlled. Instead of spraying an entire crowd, if one person's getting rowdy, you hit them in the chest, and it also gets on their clothing, and it's supposed to keep you from winding up, because every time you try to like clear it from your face, it's just coming out of your clothes,
Yeah.
and you basically have to leave to go change. What it's not meant for is sliding to a stop and then hitting a crowd with like the rapid fire professional paintballer, like rounds, which is what the guy did in the video. So
Garcetti is just ridiculous.
There's nothing that justifies
If
it.
there's anybody who deserves to be fired,
Yeah.
besides probably the cops, but we don't know.
Stephanie Rawlings-Blake.
Stephanie Rawlings-Blake.
God, yes, please.
Because right now, all she's doing is, I want to be governor one day, damage control.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to show up on television and say whatever it takes at that exact moment to one day be elected governor, and hope that people forget this entire thing ever happened.
Within 3 hours, I'm going to meet with the protesters and tell them how my heart is breaking, and then I'm going to go meet with the FOP and do a press conference where I say I back my police.
Yeah.
Both of those things cannot be true. You cannot both be with the protesters and with the police.
Well, as we touched on 3 weeks ago on the
Sure.
episode with the dead fish,
Yes. She walks that fine line of...
Baltimore City does not have a great, despite being a majority black city.
Yeah.
I believe it's majority black at this
So,
point, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Almost solely black, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not solely black, because there are a lot of white neighborhoods.
I always forget the city is as big as it is.
Yeah.
Like, it goes way out to almost here, right?
Yeah. Like, Hamden isn't majority black.
No.
But, West Baltimore is majority black. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
East Baltimore. Also
Right.
majority black.
but it has, throughout the entire history of it being a city, certainly post Civil War,
Yeah.
has not been up with the times on racial issues.
Yeah, and when we were talking about the housing problem a couple
Yeah.
episodes ago, that was not ancient history. That was
The 70s.
relatively recently. Yes.
So I think just in general, if I was a black person who lived in Baltimore City, I would be pretty upset that we still aren't on the level that we should be.
Right.
Certainly something that I think should be tackled.
And it's made me think a lot about home, especially with this being the 2-year anniversary of the uprising and everything that went on with that. And something that's sort of been sticking with me recently, and I feel like I needed to get it off my chest, is how has nothing changed? Like, nothing's changed,
No.
and everybody's holding on like it can be the good old days, that we
Yeah.
don't have to have a brand new day. And we're all just we're trying to make Groundhog Day happening, and it's not happening. Like, what I don't understand what the cause of that is.
Well, I remember when I saw pictures coming out of Baltimore on the first day of the uprising, and I was super excited about it. And I said, Arab Spring has come to America. The people have finally had it, and they are going to say, we are confronting the police. We're not going to let this happen anymore. And if there was a place it was going to happen, it was going to be Baltimore. Like, just a crowd that has had 60 years of shit piled on them.
Yeah.
And they are not going to take it anymore. And
Right.
if that's not a simile for the Arab world, there is no better one. And then nothing. I mean, there was a couple of days of a day of violence, a couple of days of protest, and then it all went away. And 2 years later, people are still dying. The homicide rate is up in Baltimore.
We hit over 100 between
This week on the Oh the Anthem podcast, we have a lot to get to. We hope you're excited. We're excited to be here. It's Monday and we're back. And what else is back? AMC theaters. Oh, God, we are so excited to get out to the movies. We do have your coronavirus updates. Make sure you stay tuned and listen for those. SCOTUS has another ruling. We're going to discuss that. Oh, sad news, sad news. Cops are quitting everywhere and getting the blue flu. Whatever are we going to do? We'll talk about that as well as John Bolton's book. We have more information. Very excited. Trump's rally in Tulsa, and maybe a little sports ball if we have time to get to it. All that and more on this week's episode of the Oh the Anthem podcast.
Welcome to the Party Zone. This is Corey, and this is the podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 324 of the Oh the Anthem podcast, coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for listening on your podcatcher of choice, no matter which one it is, anchor.fm/Oh the Anthem.
And of course, you can find Oh the Anthem at Oh the Anthem on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, youtube.com/Oh the Anthem. And we're streaming live on twitch.tv, on Periscope, on YouTube, on Facebook, everywhere. Anywhere you want to check us out, you can find us there. And we're live all over the world. And of course, new for the last few weeks, you can join us in our Discord chat. If you want to join us there and make a comment, we'll bring it up live right here in the midst of the screen so you can see your comments on the show.
Don't be confused, though. If you comment anywhere, we will see it. We will know about it. So.
Absolutely. And this is comments from everywhere. This is comments from Facebook. We see Kent has joined us from all the way back in Maryland. Thank you for joining us, Kent. A little conversation before the show began up there. But if you're commenting on Twitter, if you're commenting or Periscope or Twitch or Facebook, we're going to see it live right here.
Yes, indeed.
So jumping off at the top, let me grab that for your consideration splash because I don't, I'm so excited. Oh, that's right. Oh, wow.
For legal reasons, we can't get clearance to go shoot this thing.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. So instead, let's use that questionably legal image. So great news this week, guys. And Corey and I couldn't be more excited. We tweeted about it this week. If you're not following Oh the Anthem on Twitter, you probably missed it. But AMC has announced that they are making a plan for reopening theaters. Now, Corey and I get super excited about AMC for one specific reason. We are AMC. What do they call
A-list?
that thing?
Yeah.
A-list. We're A-list, premium A-list subscribers, whatever
A-list
that is.
premiere, yeah.
Well, A-list premiere. Nonetheless, what that means is we pay one flat fee and we can see all the movies we want to a month, essentially three a week, which we never actually hit three a week. So AMC saying they're reopening means we get to go back to the movies. We talked a few weeks ago about how Tenet got pushed and they were going to be pushing till late July. This means that AMC reopening in mid-July, I think July 19th is the date that they put out, means that Tenet going to the end of the month will be right there. And here's my question for you, Corey.
We have Mulan before that. I think Mulan is going to be the first big release to open up theaters.
The first big one I don't care about whatsoever. But so yeah, I was going to say what's coming out before that. And do you think they're going to try to finish run some of the stuff that opened right before the theaters ran down?
Probably not. I think that some of these theater chains are a little bit upset with how some of the movies that released like straight onto VOD have not respected their theatrical window. So I doubt they're going to let them go into theaters after they've already sort of been in homes. But there's going to be things to show. I imagine it's probably going to be a lot more like classic offerings in the immediate term until things ramp up a little bit more. But
My understanding was that Staten Island,
King of Staten Island,
King of Staten Island, was actually holding out for theaters and then basically pushed to VOD last minute. So I don't know.
Something tells me that with that movie specifically, it was never going to make a lot of money in the box office. And I think it was probably better to just have it go on to premium VOD and have people pay $20 for it than it would be for it to go into theaters and make less than was expected in like an opening weekend. Because if they project you to have a $10 million opening weekend and you hit 8, then you're a humongous failure in a lot. So with something so tenuous as whether or not people are going to go to the theaters and whether or not they're going to understand that box office numbers are probably going to be 25% of what they were before because we're only going to be able to fill 25% of the seats at most. It probably will look really bad for box office for a while. But that's sort of the price you pay for having movies back. At some point, they're going to have to come back.
Let's just, if you guys could just hang on for a minute. Do you want to do a movie night for King of Staten Island?
Sure.
I mean, I want to see it. I don't know if the girls want to see it, but
Rachel and I were talking about watching it the other day, but I didn't necessarily want to do it just because it felt a little rich for my blood.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like I would necessarily pay $20 to go see it in a theater. I would use A-list to go see it.
Right.
But I probably wouldn't go to like Draft House and pay $20 to see King of Staten Island.
Yeah.
You know?
But we'll have 4 of us here, and
if it's more people, it feels more worthy of, like $5 each essentially.
Yeah.
So I don't care about that.
And if the wayward son makes his way back from the border, maybe we can include him. But saying hi to Roberto from all the way here. So back to the topic. As Corey pointed out, AMC has said they are going to have 25% fill, and I think that has been a standard thus far. Regal also said they were going to reopen at 25%. It wasn't going to be a hard ceiling, which I think that just means we might cap it at 35%, but I don't think that they're expecting to sell that many tickets to the theaters themselves. AMC has said face masks are not going to be required, and then they said, no, wait, face masks are going to be required. So that was good. Regal had already said face masks are going to be required. Cinemark, which is, by the way, now that I've said AMC, Cinemark, and Regal, those are the 3 major companies you can go see movies for. All saying 25%, all saying face masks.
Be aware, be kind to the distribution companies right now because they're in perilous situation. Regal just got a $250 million debt acquisition, which will help them sort of get through this a little bit. But it's going to cost them in the long term. Right now, their concern is how can we not offend anybody? How can we be like Michael Jordan in the 90s and be open to anybody and not make any kind of controversial statements and just make everyone feel welcome? And I feel like AMC at first was just like, we don't want to get into the face mask thing because then these Trump people are going to come out of the woodwork and be like, I'm not going to go see a movie if I'm going to wear a face mask. And then it seemed like the overwhelming response to it was, I'm not going if there's not a face mask policy. And then they were like, all right, now we'll do it. And then I think everyone else was after that. I think Regal announced their face mask policy after AMC had done it. And
so Regal wasn't even saying for sure when their reopening was.
Right.
It was like everybody was waiting for someone to say it. And Cinemark, I think it said they were going to do a soft open where certain theaters in certain states were going to reopen. AMC's is a nationwide reopening.
Yeah.
And here are the rules by which we're going to open nationwide. And I think part of the AMC's problem also was that they weren't clear whether that face mask policy was going to be staff or guests. And a lot of people were like,
well, they said staff for sure was going to wear it.
I thought that the reason people were upset was like, the guy sitting next to me not having a face mask, one problem. The guy selling me the ticket not having a face mask, different problem. And maybe it's just people like me who didn't read the story enough and weren't clear about what the rule was.
I'm pretty sure I read that all the staff was going to wear face masks, and they were going to have them
the separation
available.
And the glass.
So like if you went there and you didn't have a face mask, you could get one for $1 or something like that, and that $1 would go towards COVID-19 related, whatever. That all jives with me. We're in a really weird place with the face mask thing. I don't really get it, to be honest with you, because it seems like it almost feels like insurance. Would you pay $20 to not get hurt this year? Like, or if you did, you would get some sort of payment and like for the pain and misery of getting hurt. Like, yeah, of course you would. Like,
can you recount for the listeners the example you gave me on the elevator ride up? Because I just thought I think that is nailing it exactly right.
Oh, with like people walking around the building and stuff like that.
Well, and winter versus
yeah,
you know, and maybe because we're from the East Coast, but the way that winter works on the East Coast, basically, versus
I don't think people in California have an appreciation for like what you had to go through in wintertime. Like, if you needed to go get the mail under normal circumstances, you just walk out and get the mail. If it's wintertime, then you have to put on the jacket, you got to put on the sweatshirt, you got to put on the pants, you got to put on the snow pants, you got to put on the snow boots. You have to put on your gloves and your hat and everything like that. It's a 20-minute process to go outside for any reason whatsoever. So once you get used to that, like it sort of feels like, well, yeah, why won't I put on one layer of protection to, give me some sort of not immunity, but like the protection from it, like.
And that's the problem. Yeah, people in California are spoiled. They don't know that life, that going to the mail when it's freezing cold outside life.
Or the having to like stomp through like 2 feet of snow. Like,
I don't
mind doing the shorts and the t-shirt to walk out to the mail if it's just like cold out. I can deal for a couple seconds, but like when you have to like do the like forge through snow thing, like, yeah, no, fuck that.
I have a really excellent picture of Corey in shorts and a sweatshirt grabbing a screen that blew off of our apartment building in like ankle deep snow, just like, yes, I got it. And it's a good picture. I'll try to find that picture.
That was funny. I think we were just like looking at the window. We were just like, that sounds weird. And then all of a sudden, just
yeah, it was the Snowpocalypse 2000.
It felt like when SWAT like blows a door.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. Yeah. Anyway,
what's that commotion out there? Bam.
Okay. Yeah. And speaking of a commotion, Corey, I think that there was a little bit of commotion with the Supreme Court this week, wasn't there?
I don't know if I would say a commotion, but there was certainly something. So the Supreme Court is in session. They just ruled last week on protections for trans and gay workers that angered Trump. And this week, DACA is on the agenda. And in a 5-4 decision with Roberts siding with the liberal justices, they argued that the Trump DACA rescission is not legal and that it has to be overturned. And I would say that this is a big win for Dreamers and everyone who has been on their plight. But I wouldn't get super comfortable with this one because basically how Roberts justified how he voted there was that the Trump administration did not follow the law properly when they rescinded it, and that it's not a moral judgment. It's just merely a whether or not they followed the exact framework that they needed to do to overturn this, and they didn't.
And this is the frustrating
it's one of those
thing.
if you come back with the bill, if you come back with the thing that deports all these people who've known no country other than America, then I'm going to allow it to pass, but only as long as it is within the legal framework that we need it to be.
And I think that is that's the frustrating part, because the thing I hear most from the right wingers are about liberal judges legislating from the bench, which, I whether you agree with it or not, sometimes it's necessary because the legislature just doesn't do it. And Brown versus Board of Education was finally the court saying, if you're not going to do anything about this, we're going to have to say, this is illegal, go to an alternative. And if you can't figure it out, we'll figure it out. But the conservative judges do the opposite, but it's almost as damaging, where they say, listen, we can't side with you this time, but here's a 12-point plan. And if you bring me this 12-point plan, I'll agree with you next time. Now, and one of the things I think is weird, though, I just basically on this topic alone, not this topic, but Roberts alone, is giving it some thought while you were talking. I don't know that if it was just a moral call, that the new Roberts, this new guy who we weren't expecting at all, doesn't make a moral call. I think this was a way of him hedging a bet and being like, Now, I know you saw me rule on the other thing and it seemed weird, but this thing is because you didn't do it right. And then if they bring it back, maybe he's going to be like, well, yeah, kids in cages, I'm not down with that.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to overrule you on the fact of morality. And
Yeah.
maybe it's a way of like calling out all evil people and being like, hey, look at all the evil people who voted for this. We're still going to strike it down, but now you know.
Well, I mean, like, at the end of the day, what you want from a judge, if you're trying to get the fairest, most honest judges you can, what you're looking for is somebody who is going to apply the law, and apply the law from the Constitution mostly. Like, like everything, all our laws are based somewhat on the Constitution before it. So if there's something that leads from the Constitution to this moment, then you're going to go through all those steps to get to there. But at the end, you want somebody who's going to be fair, somebody who examines all the facts and tries to judge based off of whether or not it should go or not, and I feel like Roberts at this point is more concerned about doing something that might be politically charged that is against how he feels the law should be read. Like he will go to the right on issues if it's a 50-50 call. Mm-hmm. But if there's a clear violation of the law somewhere along the way, or violation of how the law should be instituted, then he has no choice. It's like if crucial evidence is thrown out by the judge because it was illegally obtained, like
what do you want me to do?
Yeah, he clearly murdered her based off of this conversation that you got of her recording him in a 2-party consent state. I'm sorry, legally, I cannot allow this piece of evidence into the courtroom.
Yeah.
I agree that on that tape, he said, I'm going to kill you when I got home. And later when he got home, she was dead. But unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about the law.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also, in the pre-show, we were discussing about how some justices tend to, as they stay on the bench for longer, think more about their place in history, and they come in on the court like Kavanaugh has, just full of piss and vinegar and like, I'm a conservative and this is how I'm going to rule. And then some of them, Scalia isn't one, Ginsburg isn't one on the other side. Mm-hmm. Some of them tend to move towards the middle and just be like, I don't want to be on the wrong side of history on something here. Now, I don't think Ginsburg has to worry about that because generally she's the buffer trying to keep us out of fascism. But for Roberts, I wonder if there is a little bit of, I don't want to be on the wrong side of history 20 years from now. Because, by the way, and funny thing, if you guys were here for the wait screen, we do a wait screen before we start the show, and it runs with some old episodes. I realized there's 100% chance we talked about this when he was nominated less than 5 years ago. But he's a 40-year-old. He was nominated for the court at 40.
Yeah.
He's going to be there a long time. And part of me, I think, hopes that he's thinking about 20 years from now, if I'm still sitting on this bench, do I want that court then?
Roberts was in Bush, though, right?
Yeah. No.
So it would have been more than, it would have been
Oh, he was at the end of Bush.
2005.
He was the end of Bush, right? No, 2008. Was it 2008, 2007?
Well, 2008 would have been when Bush was going out.
Yeah.
I think it would have had to have been 2007.
Wow, what were we talking about then?
We've talked about Gorsuch. We've talked about Kavanaugh.
Maybe it was during the discussion of
Garland.
Yeah. Because I feel like Roberts came in at the end of Bush.
Well, I mean, like anytime we talk about the court, there's a certain degree of Roberts you talk about because he's the Lisa Murkowski of the court at the moment. Like he goes wherever he wants. Like
nominated 2 Chief Justice instead of having someone on the court move to Chief Justice and nominate a new associate. Yeah, I guess he's been there for a while. So, oh, wow, he's in his 50s now. But nonetheless, he's still going to be there for a long time.
For me, it just seems weird that you don't think about your place in history at all when you get to this place. Because it's not like, if you're an NBA player, you think about your place in history at a certain point. If you've played long enough and you're well-known enough, LeBron James at this point is starting to think about, like, beyond the basketball accomplishments, what am I going to be remembered for? So, that's, not that he doesn't care about these issues, but it's why he's leading so much on, like, George Floyd and racial issues and stuff like that, because he sees a moment where he can make some substantial change, and he can be remembered more for this in association with a great basketball career than he would be known if he was just a great basketball player. And there's more cachet in him being known as a somebody who fought for rights and not just played the game, right?
There's a big difference, though.
He's one of 10,000 people who've played in the NBA,
Yeah.
as opposed to one of 9 that are on the court at any given point in time.
And although the next great player may be coming up as he's going out, for instance, Rehnquist was nominated in the late or mid 70s. I think Nixon nominated Rehnquist as an associate justice. Reagan moved him up to chief justice. He was on the court long enough that he wrote the minority opinion on a case that then came up for review while he was still on the court, and basically had a bunch of new people sitting next to him who said, wow, this is a real shitty opinion. And that's part of the realizing, like Roberts at 45,
Right.
having to be like, I don't want 20 years from now for this to come back and be like, dude, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, kids in cages is okay. And whatever it takes to get you to the right side of the issue, you move there just so 20 years from now, you're not talking about it again.
I mean, thinking back, and I'm not like some scholar on the Supreme Court, so I'm sure I'm missing something. I'm sure there's some person who's yelling at their podcatcher of choice right now, going, "You idiot! You forgot about this." But I mean, like for the most part, I feel like Roberts is pretty good on the law.
Yeah,
and he finds his decisions and what makes the most sense legally. He doesn't seem to freelance on opinion that much. There certainly have, like we talked about, there's certainly been 50-50 calls where it feels like he leans more to ideology than law, but that's when you're trying to split a baby of some kind, and like your natural inclination is going to be what leads the day to an extent.
Well, the White court, though, the Justice White was
they've all been white courts.
The Chief Justice during the late 50s and early 60s. I said Brown versus Board of Education. That was one of the first decisions for the White court with him as Chief Justice. And basically what his policy was to figure out his decision and then work his way back on the law and figure out, how do I justify this place we need to go, legally speaking? And I don't know that Roberts isn't starting to do that too, where he's like, this is where I want to be. Now, how do I work my way from where the problem of the law is to get there?
I think Roberts on some of these issues, like, because when DACA came up with Obama in court, where they were trying to argue it they argued it all the way to the Supreme Court, and they upheld that the Obama administration was within their rights to do this. And I think their argument, the win there was basically like, we have no reason to overturn it, but if you pass a law, then there's nothing we can really do about it. And then they never bothered with the law part because they were worried about any law they write to counteract this would have some sort of institution in it that would not be able to be defended in court. Because at a certain point when people were arguing DACA from the right in the case, it was hard to not make it some sort of mention of sort of an inherent racism that
Latin
people
American
need to go back to their countries. Like,
and Latin American countries, even though there are DACA recipients who are from all over the world.
Right.
But it doesn't matter because the argument
some
comes down to
7-year-old from Oslo who's only known this country. Like,
But it doesn't matter because to the right, it's about Mexicans, Central Americans, and South Americans coming up over the board.
Right.
And how do you make a law that's like, listen, the guy from Oslo, totally cool. We want him to stay. We can't say brown people. It's the non-whites. Is that cool? Can we say non-white? No? Okay. Yeah.
How do I make this argument?
In a way that isn't inherently...
Help me.
Yeah. Help me. But yeah, so I think the problem is too, this is not a hot take, but it's certainly very early in a group that gives very few hints several times a year. So like this is 2 of maybe 4 or 5 decisions they'll give, and then big break, and then they'll hear some more cases, and then October we'll get some more stuff.
Yeah. And
it's like you get these little hints of things, and then we could come back to Führer Roberts in October. We don't know.
Right.
And it could just be like, Trump really like his hair. I'm gonna rule for the administration.
I mean, Roberts isn't wrong to rule the way he did, and it seems that the conservative justices who voted on the dissent the four Kavanaugh, Gorsuch,
The usual suspects.
the usual suspects. Except Gorsuch had his week last week, so I guess we shouldn't necessarily run.
Yeah,
him down
I guess.
no, but I mean, like, they all seem to be buying the line. Robert seems to be the one who's being swayed on the law. That's our kind of defining moment here, I think. And the good news, there's not much good news in the Trump administration, but the good news, if you care about issues like this, is apparently they're so bad at the law and they don't know how to write it that it's just bound for failure.
Yeah.
It's one of those, if it gets to the high court, it's going to fail because no adult with a law degree at any point was involved in putting this together.
It's funny because I don't know
Trump writing a declaration on a napkin does not do it for Roberts, you know?
I don't know if it was last week or it was the week before where we talked about Civil Rights Act and Lyndon Johnson spending a lifetime learning how to write legislation and being like, listen, if you don't want it to get challenged, this is what we got to cover. It's a pain, but here are the 90 bases that we have to get through to make sure it will survive judicial review. And they did. And it took a long time, but they got it done. And then basically what we have now is a guy doing fiat where he's just like, I want to stop doing this. And they're like, okay, law or executive action.
At the end of the day, people who are really talented and good at the law want to continue doing it in some way or fashion. And if you're a politician who is interested in going in it that way, you know, 15 of the brightest legal minds of our coming generation are stocked in Nancy Pelosi's office right now.
Yes.
Getting paid nowhere near what lawyers are supposed to get paid, basically getting paid like college students to read and rewrite laws. This is not something they do because they like punishment. They know that if they eat shit for a little while in Pelosi's office, then it's going to open them up for the opportunity to maybe run for office in the future. And their law degree is going to help making them a more attractive politician when they run.
It helps on them.
It helps you. It helps move you along, right?
Also, if you work in public service for 10 years, they can forgive your student loans, although Trump has basically closed that program down. So
basically you can get it done as long as you follow every single rule perfectly. And there's going to be rules that they tell you about like in the middle of the night. And so
it's the
send you an email at 3 a.m. be like, respond to this by 3:30 or else your loans are not.
It's if you're black and trying to register to vote in Alabama in 1955. You walk up there, you don't know what they're going to ask you, and you got to have the right answer.
You just know you're going to come back tomorrow and stand in a line.
Yeah. So name all 59 courts, judges of the circuit court. Like, why would I possibly have to fail?
Do you know this?
Yeah, honestly, it's like, just start naming people. That guy doesn't know who they are.
No, I mean, if you want to find really brilliant legal minds, the next generation, you're going to find them working for congressmen and senators. You're going to find them clerking for justices. That's a huge one. If you can clerk for, Roberts, then you can basically write your ticket once you're not helping him anymore. And honestly, I don't think people who have law degrees are very interested in working for Trump because it's just not going. There's nobody there who seems to be writing like brilliant laws. And we should know this because Bill Barr, who is the head of the Justice Department, the top lawyer in the country, doesn't understand how like the basics of how his department is run. Did you see the whole constitutional crisis we had in the Southern District of New York?
Yeah, the guy found out he was fired by a tweet, and
so it's so much better than that. I'll give it a quick play-by-play.
Okay.
Essentially, what happened was I can't remember Berman. I think it is the
something with a B. That's the only thing, and that's why I get confused because I'm like, oh, it's Barr and Barham.
Yeah, I haven't remembered the U.S. attorney in New York. This is not on the top of my list. Berman and Barr met on Friday, and basically Barr was making him an offer to move up to be the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, And Berman was like, oh, that's nice. And apparently Barr thought that was an agreement that he was going to resign and move up to be the head of this department in the Department of Justice. And when Barr said he's offered to resign, and Berman replied with, no, I haven't. I'm not going to resign. You're going to have to fire me. And then word came out that Trump fired Berman, which he's legally allowed to do.
Yes.
And then right before he gets on the plane to go to his Oklahoma rally, a reporter asks him, why did you fire the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York? And Trump's like, I didn't have anything to do with that. That was all Bill Barr. And now it was a constitutional crisis because who actually fired him? And
Because, by the way, Barr doesn't have the authority to fire him.
does not, under any
Yes.
circumstances, have the
Yes.
ability to fire him. The good news, I guess, in this game of chicken that was happening is that because the U.S. attorney has to be confirmed, and it only triggers a confirmation if he resigns.
Yes.
Because he was fired, the number 2 moves up.
Yeah.
And apparently she's just as good as him. So it seems like there's going to be a nice continuation of power there. But
Although, hasn't he said he's not giving up the office?
he said he was not going to give it up unless the president fired him. And then the president fired him. And then he was just like, I'm going to wait for clarification before I pack up my desk.
Yeah. I would.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to hang out here for a little while. Just make sure I'm still fired.
By the way, to everyone who listened to me 4 years ago and voted for Trump, because I don't vote. Why would you listen to me? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's all I can say. I don't know what else you want at this point. But I was going to say, do you know where you can't find scrappy lawyers who are just digging in and using that legal education?
No, where?
You can't find them at otheanthem.com, that's for sure. And you can't find them at The Anthem on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or anywhere, because although I might be a lawyer, I'm not scrappy and I'm not using my law degree. So the other place you're not going to be able to find them is in police departments all over the country. Probably a place you should have a lawyer or two.
Yeah. At least somebody casually aware of the law.
Yeah, not somebody who took 6 months of training, 5 months of which was focused on guns and how to shoot a gun. But so I mentioned in our little intro bit, but Corey, there's a virus going around the country. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a pandemic.
No,
Oh,
not that one.
A
No.
new one?
A new one. And
Oh, my God.
I feel bad because I feel like I've been proven wrong. I said that to be a police officer was a job, but clearly there must be something akin in all of them because they all seem to be getting the flu all at the same time, while the rest of us are just fine.
Have
Very
they
weird.
have they been talking about this flu? Or
I mean, they've been tweeting about it, and they're not. Nobody's working. They're apparently well enough. It's not life threatening because you're well enough that you can TikTok and tweet and be on Facebook. But
cry
you can't
about
go
an
to
egg
work.
McMuffin.
Yeah. You can pretend to be poisoned, although that lady wasn't actually a cop; she was a security guard. You can pretend to be poisoned by a stick and shake.
She actually is a sheriff department, but she had claimed, I guess, in the video that she was local police or something.
Oh, see,
But remember we had our conversation about how sheriffs and police are different.
No,
and she's like,
but I guess she
There
was
was a
in
lot
the uniform of a private.
there was a lot of back and forth about what her deal was, but
She's crazy. That's what her
Yeah.
deal is. Yeah. You don't give crazy people guns, but it's America. So what are you gonna do?
apparently she's a sheriff of some kind. Not a. She's like a
Deputy sheriff.
No, what's the one below that?
Deputy is all they get, right? Is that
What would you give a high school student who wants to be a deputy?
reserve? Deputy or reserve sheriff.
You're a sheriff deputy explorist.
When the sheriff goes down to the little building and behind the school, and everybody gets a badge. Is that what you're talking about?
What's the you remember Not Another Teen movie?
Yes.
Oh no, it wasn't Not Another Teen. What was the one with
It was the Scream.
Yeah.
Spoof.
Scary movie.
Doofy.
Yeah, Doofy.
Officer Doofy.
Yeah, she was basically Doofy. whatever accommodation they gave Doofy.
I was cleaning my room. So
I've come for my egg McMuffin.
that was 100%. By the way, a movie which would not get made today.
No.
Just based on that voice alone. And wait, no, David Arquette is in the actual
He
Scream
was in
movie.
Scream, yeah.
It's
So
a
it was
dude
like
who looked a lot like David
It was an
Arquette.
lookalike.
Yeah. Oh, man. But it could be a role that David Arquette would actually play. I don't know.
I wonder what the line is on that one because, I mean, like, it was clearly that he was, I mean, if you watched all the way to the end of the movie, spoiler alert.
I'm sorry.
I,
Spoiler.
I don't know if I'm ruining Scary Movie for somebody, but it turns out he was just putting on an act.
It was the Usual Suspects. God, what is the guy's name from Usual Suspects? Oh my God.
I don't know what
Kevin Spacey.
yeah.
Also been
Not in
Me Too'd.
Scary Movie.
Hey, all of these people who've been Me Too'd. But so Kaiser Sose. He Kaiser Sose'd. Doofy was Kaiser Sose.
Yeah. He was acting dumb to be
this is
unassuming.
like so many levels. But if you guys, spoiler alert for Usual Suspects from 1996, Kevin Spacey plays a mentally challenged guy, and then as he walks out of the police station, like he has this limp, and like the limp goes away, and then he like throws some shades on and jumps into a car, and you're like, he's Kaiser Sose. And then Doofy was basically Kaiser Sose.
Yeah. Playing the Too Cool for School by Fountains of Wayne at the end.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, Fountains of Wayne. Oh, a lot of deep pulls. A lot of deep pulls from the late 90s. By the way, most of the people I work for or work with were not born when that movie came out. So, how does that make you feel?
Old.
But anyway, back to the topic, which is cops are getting the blue flu.
Yeah.
And if not, just outright quitting.
In case people don't know, we were just joking about them being actually sick.
Yes.
This is them calling in sick because they don't want to go to work because they're upset with how they're treated.
And also because they apparently don't, read a newspaper when like New York blue flued out and crime went down and the city was much more peaceful, and Baltimore police blue flued out and crime went down and things were a lot more peaceful.
Except for the police.
Well,
Except for the gun trace task force. They were
That's right. Yeah. They were the only ones working.
I seem to remember at some point along the way, like Kevin Davis was like, the gun trace task force, the only one who's doing anything in this department. The more you know.
Yes. Man. But we kind of got into a discussion prior to the show just about like, so I have always been a defender of unions, and I get put in a weird position when we talk about police unions and teacher unions because it seems like too often, and I'm glad this week I thought about Michael A. Wood and his first appearance on Joe Rogan, where basically he said, I figured this union who defends so many terrible cops would come to my defense.
Right.
Because I did the right thing, but crickets, and they just let me be fired. And I think that's where I get upset, because I am almost okay with you defending bad members of your union so long as you have as much boisterous noise to defend the good ones in your union when they do something that people don't like and they try to get fired too. But the cops don't do that. Teachers don't do that.
So the position we're in right now with like the blue flu in Atlanta and stuff like that is they're upset with how things went in God damn it, blanking on the name. The Wendy's. No. The Wendy's shooting, where the guy was sleeping in his car.
Oh, Raymond Brooks?
Yes.
Rashad Brooks.
Sorry. I always don't want to get a name wrong, so I do that thing where I like have like Brooks in my head, and I'm just like, what the fuck is it?
Maybe it's a bit of a problem because we can't remember which black guy shot by police the one we're talking about.
Yeah. Anywho.
By the way, if this was in Norway, we would be like, oh, you know that guy? The one guy in the last 4 years that was killed by police? Yeah, let's talk about that guy.
We know all the names of the people who were shot by police in Norway. So essentially what the Atlanta Police Department and the members of the union more so are upset about is that the proper procedure wasn't followed in pressing charges against the cop who is being charged with murder in this case. Mm-hmm. And whether, cops are a dangerous subject right now, but part of the situation we're in right now is that these contracts and union rights that have been written into law essentially are going to be protected until it's time to renegotiate in a lot of cases. There's not going to be a lot of unilateral movement that's going to be able to be made to change how procedures go.
Except this is a good example. So Fulton County, it holds the court. So the Fulton County District Attorney is the one who charged the cop.
Right.
The CBA is with who?
Atlanta.
The city of Atlanta.
Ah.
And what we've been under forever is the understanding that Fulton County will honor the
Atlanta's-
terms of the
yeah.
CBA that was agreed upon with Atlanta. And now they're just not. They're like, I don't care what your CBA with Atlanta. Okay, so go to the Atlanta DA. Oh, I'm sorry. They don't have a court in Atlanta? Oh, well, who cares?
Yeah.
Sorry. You should have negotiated with Fulton County if you wanted something in there about not charging people. Same thing's happening in Minneapolis. Minneapolis City has the police, but the county, whatever the county is for Minneapolis, St. Paul, has the...
Yeah, it's for both of them. I know that.
Yeah, but Minneapolis has a police force. St.
Yeah.
Paul has a police force. County is both of them.
Right.
Just like NYPD is the entire city, but it's in Kings County, Queens County, Brooklyn,
Manhattan.
and Staten Island.
Yeah.
No, Kings County is Brooklyn. The Bronx
Yeah.
and Staten Island. Yeah, so they're in the opposite, where it's like one police force, many
5
different court
counties, yeah.
jurisdictions. And so, again, we just honor, we've traditionally, because we're all on the same side, Fulton County DA works with the police in Atlanta and the Fulton County Sheriff.
Yeah.
We honor the agreements, but now they're just saying, no, what? I'm under no obligation to do that.
I'm not saying that they have to be kind to the agreement that they signed or something like that, but if you worked at an ice cream shop and the rules changed on you, you would be understandably upset. Like if all of a sudden, I'm not saying and don't make it an example of somebody being killed. I'm just saying, like, if you just are a 18-year-old who has a job at an ice cream shop and they say you can use your phone when there's no customers in the store, but you have to go out of sight. I don't want people walking into the store seeing you on your phone. Cool. If there's no customers, I'm going to stand right around the corner, look to make sure people aren't coming in, and just shoot off a quick text. If you come in the next day and the boss fires you, said, I told you never to be on that phone, you're fired, get out of here, then it would be understandable and justifiable if you were upset about that or your coworkers were upset about that, and maybe there was some sort of planned action if it was that big of a deal.
What if you were 18 and worked in a ice cream shop and you were accused of murder and they took you into an interrogation room and the cop who was sitting there said, listen, if you just tell me what happened, I can get you a good deal with the prosecutor, which he absolutely cannot do.
Right.
So you talk to the cop and implicate yourself as an accessory before the fact or after the fact. And then he's like, oh, well, tough luck, buddy. I'm not.
Well, I would tell that cop, we can do that as soon as my lawyer's here.
Well, and that is, by the way, absolutely what you should do. Whenever any cop asks you any questions, you should have 2 responses. Am I being detained? If the answer is no, walk away. If the answer is yes, then you say, I'm not going to answer any questions until my lawyer is present. That's it. And then they're going to be like, hey, buddy, I know you've been here a while. Can we get you some food? Don't answer, because as soon as you start a conversation with them, they can start asking you questions again. As long as you are acknowledging them.
I mean, you can answer as long as it is irrelevant to anything that they would bring up in court. As long as if they start talking about anything else, you say, is my lawyer here yet? Or something of that.
Here's the problem. And thank you, SCOTUS. If they say, hey, buddy, we're going to get dinner. Do you want something? And you say, yeah, grab me a cheeseburger. That means essentially they can start asking you questions again. And if you're tired because you've been there for 18 hours and you're hungry because they haven't fed you and maybe you haven't had water or anything else, then they start asking you other questions like, hey, you want us to call your mom? And, I know you're 18, but you want us to call your mom and let her know where you are? Or you have a girl somewhere we can talk to?
Yeah.
And just like, it's going to be a shame if they don't see you very long. Yeah, you're a nice kid. I'd really like to help you out. Because you opened the door by responding to them.
Yeah.
So your proper response should be, hey, we're going to get some food. Do you want anything? You should just say, where's my lawyer? That's it.
Yeah.
The only words out of your mouth should be, where's my lawyer, Miranda, any of those things.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you reopen the door. Thank you. Rehnquist Court, by the way. Yeah. Call back to the Rehnquist Court.
Yeah.
But so my point of the thing I was saying is just that cops lie to people all the time. And it is what it is.
They try and pull tricks to get people arrested on a daily basis.
Yep. And now you are crying foul because someone is not abiding by the verbal agreement that you reached with them. And not even that, kind of just an understood agreement. All right.
A baseball unspoken rule, if you will.
Yeah. Guess you should have had your union negotiating with Fulton County as a party to this CBA.
Yeah.
Otherwise, sorry. Yeah, we said we wouldn't prosecute you, but that doesn't mean we can't prosecute you. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
You said you couldn't. You would put in a word with the DA. That's
Part
not in
of,
your power.
but again, this is not meant to be a defense of cops in any sort of way. But the major issue that we're going to have for the foreseeable future with any kind of protest or any kind of movement that a citizenry tries to make on the way the police work in the side of community is largely going to be dependent on how we renegotiate the rules between, whatever entity and the cops. And that's not the type of thing you can just necessarily throw out the agreement you have, and there's going to be little things about it. Some of these things are meant to delay. I mean, like, negotiating things are negotiated to be delayed. I think there was a thing in Baltimore City where, because it happened with Freddie Gray, where you couldn't interview the officers for a month or something like that. They charged them before they even interviewed anybody associated with it. But the cops had to have like a month where they couldn't be talked to by anybody.
Yes.
And then that after a month, it was only a police rep, but there would be no recording, and it would only be an informal conversation, basically with the same sort of like Queen for a Day sort of rules. Mm-hmm. But nothing out of that conversation would come out. But basically a guy would come out and being like,
We're going to, it's basically a big hypothetical.
Yeah.
Let's just hypothetically say this situation happened. And then you tell them hypothetically what happened, and they come out with the like, we should probably look into this a little more, or more likely it's no big deal.
We might have IA look at this, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
If you worked at a place and the rules changed on you suddenly, you would feel understandably upset about that. If your work was doing something horrible and needed to have rules changed automatically, then you would think that, this is the same thing that happened with the auto workers to an extent.
Yep. Yeah.
Like the auto, there were all these stories about some guy getting paid $87,000 a year, and all he does is sleep in the office, and we can't fire him because he's part of the union. And, every Camaro you buy is $10,000 more expensive because we have 200 of those guys and stuff like that. The guy who had the sweet cushy gig sleeping and making $87,000 was like, hey, what the fuck? we have to discuss this before we change it.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him because he felt like, he had an agreement and then it got pulled away from him. But I don't feel bad for him because he was a louse and should have been fired a long time ago. Like there's two different sides to a problem here. There's multiple ways that we have to approach this, and so the problem is that in negotiation, if there's a lot of things that come up, like situations like this where they're sort of foregoing casual understandings they've had with Atlanta and going with Fulton instead to charge them, they're going to start making a bigger deal out about who can charge them and stuff. Yeah. That will not go into we're going to give up more rights because you charged us now. It's going to go into a bigger fight about what kind of jurisdiction Fulton County has over proceedings and so on and so forth.
That leads to another thing. So Atlanta is more controversial because there is a rule broken, whether it was written rule or not.
Yeah.
There are other places where the blue flu is coming out only because the city or the county or the state is talking about defunding the police department.
Right.
And basically they are having a tantrum and just like calling out and being like, well, if you don't appreciate us and you want to take our money away, well, we're just not going to do our job.
It's another protection of the job, by the way, too. Just the idea that you could do this, because if I worked at a for hire restaurant or something like that, like at will employment,
McDonald's,
if I worked at McDonald's and 10 of my employees decided that they were just going to not show up because they wanted to make some sort of point, I'm going to show you 10 fired people. Like immediately.
I got a stack of resumes over there. All of them are just as bad as yours. All right. And I can get all those guys in here tomorrow.
You are not special, Sarah. But
by the way, that is why it's so hard to organize McDonald's and Ralph's and those places, because literally people are so desperate for work that, there have been times in my life where if I had gotten called and somebody said, can you be here at 4? I would have been like, It's 2:30. I'm an hour away. Yes, I can absolutely be there at 4. You got the job? Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'll be there. I'll see you. So they could have fired their entire staff and closed for lunch and then reopened later in the
For
afternoon.
dinner, yeah. Police departments don't work like that.
No.
And they have legal protections that if they call out sick, that they are not going to get punished for that.
Although, ironically, McDonald's police departments probably just as proficient with firearms. So it's one of those things, you know?
We should give drive-through people guns. That's how we'll fix it. If they see any crime, they'll just stick out and just like, pew, 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 pew.
But wait. Remember what Biden said. Shoot him in the leg, not in the chest. That's what we got to do.
Oh, Jesus
So we got
Christ.
2 other news things I just want to like lightning round through so we can get to the rest of the show because we were already going a little long. Something that kind of came out, and I don't want you to hot take it, but
Okay.
it just came out today, so feel free not to comment if you don't want to.
No
But,
comment.
Just that there are paramedics, there are support staff at hospitals that have been doing double shifts since the COVID pandemic began.
Yes.
There are Ralph workers who have been working double shifts since the pandemic began. These folks are going out and going to work while the rest of us got to stay home working our telecommuting jobs or just not going out into the world.
Yeah.
And one of the stories that came out was there was a paramedic, I think it was DC, who was working 14 hours, which is a double for him, and then driving Uber several hours after his shift because he couldn't pay his rent on double shift paramedic pay. And he had a kid or 2 kids. I don't remember all of the details, but it's just like there is no world in my mind where that makes sense. That you are out working as a paramedic in a coronavirus world doing double shifts and you should still have to go drive Uber afterward to make ends meet.
I think that there are misunderstandings about what is value exactly. So with a police department, you hear something like, LAPD costs $1.8 billion a year, right? Like, or that's what they were proposed for before Garcetti cut the old budget down.
He only cut $150 million out, but that's fine.
It's still $1 billion being spent on the police, but
1.6 billion actually. Yes.
No. He cut the earlier amount, so it was like 1.2 before. So now it's just 1.05 or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sure. Yeah. Big cuts.
Well, they're not authorizing any more overtime, so I don't know what to tell you.
By the way, just so for those who have trouble with big numbers, 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 31 years. That is we're talking about 31 years of seconds of dollars. That is how much is being spent.
I was like there was a fake Twitter account for like LAPD parody account or something like that. And it's just like, people think $1.8 billion is a lot of money, but then you think about it and it's only $32.8 million a day. It's just like, holy shit. We're spending more per day on the police department than we are for homelessness. I don't like pick an issue, anything. Like there's a ton
I'm pretty sure that we spend $5 million a year on homelessness in LA.
I think they'll argue that they spent $100 million or something like that, but that'll be $5 million from the city plus charitable plus an extra bond measure that was passed by the state, and
which theoretically is available for homelessness, but is also available for schools and also to buy bulletproof vests for cops. So
right, but I'm saying
who knows where that money got spent? I can't tell you.
The problem is that at the end of the day, like, if you ask Garcetti a question, he's just like, no, we spent $100 million on the homeless. I'm just like, well, I guess I'm going to spend the next 2.5 weeks looking at the entire budget and figuring this shit out. Like,
yeah.
Like at a certain point, you have to take people on their word because I'm not going to do that. Like,
by the way, this is why local newspaper reporting is so important. Because I mean, going back to Baltimore, the Baltimore Brew, I didn't realize how much I missed them.
Yeah.
But they are doing really good in-depth reporting where they're like, hey, you know how they said this? Not true at all. Here's the facts. And I'm like, oh, bless you so much. And Matt Pierce, who is a reporter with, or was, I don't know if he still works there, at the LA Times, basically has made it his little thing to be like, all right, so the mayor said a lot of things. Was that a scream?
No, that was a almost car accident.
Oh, okay.
I was waiting for the boom.
Matt Pierce will say like, okay, so the mayor spoke for 30 minutes. I picked out one thing. here's why he lied. And it's just like, I went really in depth and found all the details. So support local news reporting, by the way. Be like Corey, who has a, do you still have the subscription to the Baltimore Sun that you're paying for? Oh, no, they wouldn't take your money. That's right.
I did at the end of the day have to figure out a way to get to the Baltimore Sun because I have a lot of research that involves the Baltimore Sun. So. But
they didn't make it easy to give them
No.
money, and I feel like in this climate, you should probably.
Well, I mean, like, and newspapers are a perfectly good example of what we're dealing with the hospitals too. Because I should anyone who works a full-time job be struggling to pay rent? No. I feel like we should all be reasonable here to if you cut $1 billion off of Bezos's top, right? Like just $1 billion fell out of his pocket and it was distributed amongst other people who lived in LA.
Yeah.
And what are we at? Like 10 million people in LA?
The basin, in the LA County.
Yeah.
Orange
I mean,
County
like
area.
that's not large money, but
No.
I mean, like hypothetically, like little tiny investments and things that it can prove, and if $5 worth of investment in somebody's life can make profound impacts on the other side.
Wait,
So
I have a proposition for you, Corey.
yeah,
So I think the state, or maybe the federal government, should step in, take a little bit of money from really rich people, and then fund programs that benefit large groups of people.
it sounds like communism you're speaking of.
Or, just taxation. That's, you keep
Well, no,
fighting these things.
No,
conservative Republicans.
No. Hold on. Here's the real problem. At
It
the
is
end,
communism, by the
at
way.
the end of the day, we think that how much it costs. If I keeled over with a heart attack right now and I had to pay cash for all my expenditures at the hospital, it would be $97,000 or something like that, or more.
Your bigger problem is I don't call the cops, so you better hope somebody watching the show is going to make a call for you.
Just gonna dump me off the balcony and hope somebody calls.
Push you out in the hallway.
The
Somebody will take care of that. It's fine.
people walking by with that mask. I'm like,
No,
excuse me. Put your mask on, sir. And then call the police. Call the ambulance. No, I mean, like people, it would cost me $97,000 if I went to the hospital with a heart attack.
Yeah.
You imagine that of that $97,000, that 20% of it is going towards staff. I mean, like if I was running a restaurant and I had 20% payroll cost, that's more or less what
that's
I,
where you are, right?
that's pretty even with what I should be paying. Discerning minds would say you got to keep it below 18%, but there's a little fluctuation in that number from time
question,
to time.
do you serve breakfast or not? Do you have 3 shifts or 2? That's the...
Yeah, there's different things at play here, but you would think that somebody who's working as an emergency room nurse is making really great money, and some of them are. Some nurses and some doctors make really great money.
Yep.
Other people don't make any money at all, and the problem is that the hospital is more interested in charging $15 per Band-Aid and getting insurance to cover it than to pay the people who work to put the Band-Aids on.
Yep.
And it's more important if they can show a direct cause of price. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Every single time we put a Band-Aid on, it costs $20. The insurance company has to go, well, all right, here's that 20. Like, they don't care about they'll pay the 20 all day, but if you say that you got to pay $20 an hour to the person who put the Band-Aid on as well, they're just like, whoa. Not made of money. What is this?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it's a complex series of corporations that are running healthcare, both in the hospital side and on the insurance side.
So,
and it's all these things are just complicated. When capitalism gets involved in what should be basic human rights, it becomes complicated to discern what dollar amount should be spent where.
But assuming that we were not going to have a big communist uprising, which, we should. How about this? This is what I'm proposing and why I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
I propose that once we are free and clear of coronavirus, whenever that is.
Yeah.
Because I don't want something to be done during the crisis that then is undone when the crisis is over. This is we are out, we're clear. Now we're going to take decisive action, that we push Congress to pass a true HEROES Act that essentially says what Franklin Roosevelt said in 1932. a living wage for a day's work. If you work 40 hours a week at a job, you should be able to afford housing and food. You should be able to live in the area in which you are earning that 40 hours of work. And we don't do it. And I know Republicans hate this, so you're probably going to hate it. But we do it as a benefit, as a way to say thank you to everyone who, by the way, the people who stocked the shelves while we were in under quarantine were making not in California, but nationwide, $7.25 an hour. They're making minimum wage, which in California now is what, $13.25 an hour?
Yeah.
You still can't afford an apartment in LA on $13.25 an hour.
I think a lot of the problem is because I think we specifically have seen this over the course of our lifetimes, how the value of the dollar has exploded so much, you know?
Well, the devaluing.
Well,
of the dollar.
devalue,
Yes.
yeah. But I'm saying like the cost of things has exploded, while the amount of money you make for an honest day's work is stagnant, you know?
First,
I think
first tank of gas I bought, what about 89 cents?
it
per
was
gallon.
something like that, yeah,
Yeah.
like 95 cents.
And minimum wage, when I was working a minimum wage job to pay for that 89 cents a gallon gas, $7.25.
Yeah.
Today, gas nationwide, best you're gonna do probably $1.70, so up by $1. Minimum wage $7.25.
Yeah.
Nothing has improved.
The problem is that we don't. I honestly think that a lot of people aren't coming from it from a place of like wanting to be cruel to people. I think generally people want a living wage for work and stuff like that, but I think about it sometimes from the perspective of my dad, where he talks about stories about like, my first job is the Good Humor ice cream man. I got made $1.20 an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you look at it, it's like that would have been equivalent to $25 an hour nowadays.
A steak dinner cost you 25 cents when you were making $1.25 an hour.
Right, and you know, like there's a lot of other things, but like it's hard for you to shake. Like,
That-
you know, like,
yeah.
oh, at one point I made $1 an hour, and you know, like I was fine, and like, you know, now they're making $15 an hour, and you know, like I'm sure expenses have gone up a little bit, but it's hard to, if you're not out there constantly like having to rent a new place or like, you know, get new insurance or, you know, get a new cell phone plan or whatever little cost of life you need to spend on, then you don't know what it's like. Like, you know, my dad has paid the same mortgage for 25 years, you know, or more. So to him, we're still stuck at, you know, 1990 price on on his home.
Well, it's one of the things I love about Iowa and New Hampshire, which they don't do anymore, but they should. It used to be that's where you would get the questions like, how much is a gallon of milk?
Yeah.
And then you get all of the candidates to be like, $1.10? Like, whoa, this guy's way out of touch.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, I don't know, $15? Like, what? Yeah, it's because it lets you know how in tune your leader is going to be with the reality of life.
Yeah.
When's the last time you, sir, bought a gallon of milk or a gallon of gas or bread or anything? But you heard it here first. I am calling for the post-coronavirus Heroes Act, where we call for a living wage for a living for work. Whatever you will make for 40 hours, you have to be able to live on that wage if you are going to be working 40 hours.
The problem is that if you don't have people, and this is always my concern about this type of issue, is if you don't have somebody who is fighting for the rights of the people who are, you know, at the lower end, who are getting shafted here, then it's just going to cause prices to go up. You would pay a nurse $25 an hour instead of $15 to do their job, and now they can live comfortably, like not so that they can pay their rent in LA or something like that. But then all of a sudden, rent is going to go up because more people have more money, and there's going to be more, you know, costs that are associated with people having more money. The hospital is going to charge way more than they have before to, you know, take the new cost of the raises that you're giving to these employees, and now you're going to hurt somebody who doesn't have insurance and got hit by a car, and now they're at the hospital, and their $100,000 procedure is now $150,000.
It's super strange because the rules of capitalism are governed by an invisible hand: supply and demand.
Yeah.
And through the last 3 months, demand has gone up exponentially. Supply has gone down exponentially, and yet prices are relatively stable in the store. Why is that?
Because the means of being able to get a lot of these products to market is still out there. The infrastructure is still out there.
And the states have said you cannot take advantage of this economic time. So if you can't price gouge.
Yeah.
And if we are willing to do it now, why aren't we willing to do it on a much larger basis to just say we are in a crisis right now of morality in the country and we need to address that?
I mean, it would help if there was just more people who brought up, like, if you thought about your paycheck as what you're paying the various different departments of government, right? Like, I make $100 a week, just round number. Make $100 a week. 85% of that, 85 cents of that is, or $85 of that is going to police. Mm-hmm. And then you're doing this thing of like, like, oh, I'm giving 20 cents to help people get homes, and here's another 30 cents for the homeless, and here's 70 cents for the schools. That sounds fair. Like, you're breaking off the rest of it in little tiny incremental pieces.
Yeah.
You had to have somebody sort of bring it up first. I feel like if there was somebody who was like, hey, I worked as a sales rep for Pfizer, and I met all the heads of all the major hospitals, and here's how much
everything gets spent on.
Here's how much everything gets spent. Here's how the sausage is made. Enjoy yourself. And then you look at it and you say, like, holy shit, staff cost is 0.2% of the, like you do the, and a lot of the problem with capitalism too is that at a certain point you devalue a person based off of what type of work they do, mm-hmm. and not like whether or not they should be valued as a person just in general. Like, how much is the value of a person working?
Yeah.
Because they'll say, like, oh, this woman who is filing and, typing up reports because we need to send the insurance reports, we wouldn't have hired her if it wasn't for the insurance company. So she's making money off of that. And therefore, she only needs to make $7 an hour. Like, it's just all she's doing is typing. Like, those are the types of arguments we need to. Your quick little aside, by the way, is
yes,
gone horribly right.
And I will say that I'm going to dedicate myself over the rest of 2020 to doing exactly what you asked for right there.
To expose
I am
hospitals?
going to not expose hospitals. I'm going to educate people as much as they want to listen on how the sausage is made. So this is what your money goes to. I've talked about bringing back Rob Explains Everything. I'm going to start out with either systemic racism or defunding the police. I'm going to move on from there to say, what is the actual cost of giving a living wage? What are the impacts? Rent going up, prices going up, everything else. We're going to dive in. We'll do a deep dive for the rest of 2020. The other news lightning round article was there's going to be Biden said 3 debates.
Yeah.
We haven't heard from Trump. My guess is going to be less because
I feel like they agreed to 3 though.
I think Biden's campaign just put out 3, and we haven't heard a response about a yes or no.
I mean, Trump said to some extent that he's looking forward to a debate when he was on Tulsa. So
he said he was looking forward to a debate. I don't know if he's going to allow 3 because I don't know.
He sort of said, I think he said in sort of the New York way that he doesn't really articulate what he means.
Yes, a debate.
I'm looking forward to the debate with Biden. Like, that the debate could mean 15 debates. It could be 1 debate. It could be, the debate in the general or debate in the microcosm of the event.
And we will talk about that rally briefly. Before we do that, though, I promised you a coronavirus update. So, of course, here is your coronavirus update. 2 big pieces of news. One,
we're fucked.
Well, yeah. All right, let me bring Corey back in real quick. So Corey has a big problem with people not wearing masks, and he absolutely should. You heard our example about winter clothes to go get the mail. Wear masks. Honestly, like, who cares?
It's not, it's not even the... I want everyone to wear a mask, but at the same time, I get why people say, like, oh, I don't need to put it in. I'm just walking down the hall to go to the trash or something like that. But you don't know if you're going to run into somebody in the hall who has an awful cough or doesn't have an awful cough. You don't even know.
Yep.
We got out of the of the car when we got here, and there were people without masks standing around their car, and I could smell that they were smoking weed.
Yeah.
And they started coughing, and I assumed it was because of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Who knows?
And now I'm just feeling uncomfortable walking by all these people coughing with no masks on.
Why not both? It could be both. You never know.
It could be both. And, it's just like, to me, I would feel so awful if I got somebody sick.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was a normal, healthy person who got better 2 weeks later, I wouldn't feel awful like, sue me or something like that. But I feel awful in the general way that, like, if you got anybody sick, you'd feel terrible about it.
When you get the flu and then somebody gets it, and you're like, oh, that's probably
I gave
me.
it to you.
Yeah, sorry
fuck.
about that. I know how terrible this is.
Yeah.
So,
And this is way worse than the flu. So I just, to me, it seems so easy. And it seems like, I don't know anything. I'm an idiot. So why should I question? Like, this seems like, at the very least, it's not hurting. Like, is that a reasonable?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, to record for posterity, so this will live forever, Corey disconnected his mobile data on the way here and then couldn't figure out why he couldn't make a phone call. And this guy knows to wear a mask, all right? Come on.
I could make a phone call. I couldn't get Google to work.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, I couldn't get Google to work. So your coronavirus update for this week, 2 things, good news, bad news. Let's start with the bad news. Cases are spiking on the way up. We are about 2 weeks out from the start of the George Floyd protests, which, by the way, are ongoing. As much as you're not seeing it on the news, they're still happening. It's still going on, and good for that. But mask up, wear some gloves, stay social distancing, because we need to do that. And what the CDC is essentially saying now is we didn't stop. We didn't come down off the peak. We are still on our way up, on the upside of the peak. And it, just like global warming, the temperature goes up and down, but we're trending upwards still. And we need to get to the other side of this thing. And luckily, we're treating it with a lot of respect. Oh, wait, no. We are reopening the entire economy. And as excited as I am to go to movies, we shouldn't be. We should be closing things down because it's going to get worse before it gets better. But good news on this topic. There was a study that was done, I want to say it was in the UK, where they isolated this specific genetic strain, the COVID-19, coronavirus, the novel coronavirus 19. They have identified some DNA and RNA strands, which is a huge step forward in getting a permanent vaccine. Because part of the things we're worried about is that we get a vaccine for this and then it mutates slightly and the vaccine doesn't work. But when you have an RNA or a DNA based vaccine, then that means it can mutate all at once because your DNA remains the same, the DNA of the virus remains the same, and the vaccine will continue to work. So we're basically looking at a 2-step solution, one of which is vaccine as many people as possible with the tracker, so I know where the fuck you are because you're all dumb. I'm just kidding. There's no trackers. Nobody gives a shit. But no, vaccine.
So Bill Gates can keep an eye on you in Redmond?
Vaccine as many people as possible.
Like he wants to know where all you dumb shits go? Strip club again. God, his life.
God.
I don't even...
But so there are going to be 2
Bill
steps.
Gates like, you know how long it's been since I've been to a strip club? Forever.
Yeah.
I can't go. I get mobbed.
Well, one guy's a billionaire, one guy's broke. I wonder what the difference is. There'll be 2 steps. There will be a temporary vaccine.
All
which
the
is,
strippers come over to me and nobody else. So
Wouldn't you?
awful for everyone else.
Wouldn't you?
God, if Bill Gates walked into a strip club, it's just like all the girls in the middle of like private dances, like bye,
Throwing the money back. Like, yeah, you can have it. Anyway, I'm trying to lightning round this, and Corey's trying his best. So essentially, there'll be 2 steps. It will be not a temporary vaccine, but a vaccine that is based on the virus and our studies of the virus, and then hopefully later on there will be a RNA DNA vaccine, which will be more akin to polio or smallpox, where we can eradicate it and we won't have to worry about it, this particular novel virus anymore. Just in time for Nature to bring up Coronavirus 20. Yeah.
the sequel.
The sequel. So, so that's your coronavirus update. And we'll be back next week with more updates. But wear a mask and stay inside if you can.
And just generally, like, I feel like LA, too, we were so good for a little while there. Like, nobody was leaving their house. And I would look out and I'd see, like, no traffic for the most part. And I'd be like, wow, we really are doing well. And then it seemed like they left the door open a little bit, and they're just like, all right, I guess you can go outside and play a little, and then boom, just
Everybody
everywhere,
went out.
like everyone went out. Nobody's obeying any rules. And the other, we're talking about, like, we talked about the cops there and their rules and regulations and stuff too. Newsom put out a mask mandate.
Yeah.
Like, you have to wear a mask if you're outside, and you can't be physically distanced and blah blah blah. And what should just be him trying his best to get this out there without having to declare martial law has been met with, like, what fucking gives you the right, King Newsom? And, like, how dare you say we have to wear masks? And it's just like, he's not doing this to, it's not like he said, like, your firstborn daughter comes to me or something like that. It's like,
No.
he said, please wear a mask. I'm demanding that everyone please wear a mask.
I don't understand people.
Yeah.
I honestly don't. And the tweet of the week this week, again, was something along the lines of, like, oh, so we got bored and coronavirus is over. Okay, cool. That, because no, sorry, Google, no evidence to suggest that we're in any better shape than we were 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago, but we just got bored and we got tired of being inside, so let's loosen everything up.
Well, not only that, but it looks like, like when New York got hit, we started getting cases in LA. They kept saying, like, we're 2 weeks behind New York.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 2 weeks behind? We shut it down. Like, shouldn't we not be experiencing this in 2 weeks if we're all home now?
And we should have.
We should have.
Yes.
But, meanwhile, in other places, like, across the South and in Arizona and Texas and Florida and stuff like that, they were just like, fuck the rules. Everyone go. Everyone do their thing. There's no coronavirus here. And then all of a sudden it runs rampant on them. So it's like they were probably a month or two behind LA, essentially. Like, it took a while for it to spread to them. But now they're getting hit way worse than Arizona is getting hit worse than New York per capita, I think. Like,
and no one is shutting back down. They're all just like, we're going to push through this. And I'm like, oh, okay. What was it for?
I wonder if I to the end of this, I feel like the corporate interests are at hand where they think, like, we're not going to get sued.
Yep.
Like, everyone's just going to assume that if you get sick at work, it's just because everyone's getting sick, and they're not going to sue us for unsafe conditions that led to them getting sick. So let's let it roll. No one's going to...
Plausible deniability. Like, jobs closed because everything else closed, and you were like, only place I've been is work and home. So if I'm sick, I got it from work. Yeah. But now that everything's open, it's like, well, listen, did you get it from work, or did you get it from the grocery store, or the movie theater, or the barbershop? Where'd you get it? We can't say it's from work.
Yeah.
Okay. And everybody's got plausible deniability, so let's reopen everything.
Well, no, I mean, like, nobody... I think the other problem was that there wasn't really... I feel like everyone wanted to keep things going. Like, people who work at supermarkets didn't want to feel like bad guys if they put up a fight against something. So, the reasonable standards of wear masks, wear gloves, wash hands regularly, we're going to do temperature checks. Like, that all seemed like... that seems like enough to make people feel safe.
Yeah.
And, like, they didn't have to push anything more. But perhaps, some of the essential workers who got drafted into working, even though, their essentialness can be questioned to some degree.
Yeah.
And I don't mean essential, like, they're not essential, members of society, but, like, if you were saying, like, everything's going to die, who needs to go to work? Like, it's nuclear war. Who's going to work still?
I don't.
Like,
yeah, half the people who are going.
Yeah.
Now, some people might think the dispensary workers are absolutely essential, but for me, I'd just be like, maybe those guys should stay home.
Yeah. maybe not everyone is essential, But I don't know. I just feel like at some point there's a corporate interest who's saying we're not going to get sued, so let's just roll with it.
And as soon as we hit that point, it's goodbye. I mean, that's what we're doing now. Everybody's just like, all right, well, let's reopen and call it. So we should be okay with 400,000 dead, because that's probably where we're headed now. They were saying when this started, 100,000 dead by August. We hit that in May.
Yeah.
So we are now not out of the realm of possibility of hitting 500,000 dead from coronavirus.
Also, 25% of, I can't remember if it was the total cases or the deaths, but 25% is in the U.S.
Yep.
And there is the U.S. is not 25% of the world's population. We are getting
it's 100%. It's the only one that matters.
We are getting hit way worse than anyone else. Now, granted, I getting into Trump here for a second, I understand that China might not be reporting all their numbers accurately, and that's something we've come used to with China. But that is no excuse for you to try and do the same and limit the number of tests.
Yeah.
As he so stated in his rally in front of a middling group of people. There was he argued that part of the reason we were in this trouble was because we're testing too much, and he told his people to slow the test down. Now later, people said he was joking. That was a joke, obviously. But then when Trump was asked about whether or not it was a joke, he kind of danced around it. So it's always, you can't just be like, yeah, of course it's a joke. Why don't? Anywho, Trump at his rally in Tulsa. 1 million people, apparently, more than 1 million people said they were going to be there, and according to the Tulsa Fire Department. Fire marshal, 6,200 people showed up to the 19,000 seat arena. Trump apparently had Air Force One do like a low pass over the arena, so he could mire the crowds outside. And when he saw no crowds outside, they tore down the outside event structure because they were going to give a speech outside and then inside. It was going to be Pence and Trump outside and then inside. And they were going to do 2 shows. But I mean, Trump was essentially working out new stand-up material.
Yeah.
In front of everybody.
He's getting ready for 2020, so he's just working his new stuff.
This is what he does. He goes out. He works on his new stand-up material. He does his thing to own the libs, and then that's
a couple of the greatest hits when you hit like a lull, and you got to just get a little punchy laugh, and you hit the greatest hits and go back to the new stuff.
What bothers me, and I mean this shouldn't be surprising because it's been happening for as long as Trump has been alive. But what bothers me is that he'll say things that are in such poor taste for no other reason than to rile up idiots and make people who don't agree with him like vigorously like shake their head in disgust. This one didn't seem to pick up as much as other things he said during the speech, but I tweeted about it because it bothered me. He was getting into defunding the police and like whether or not there's crazy Democrats are saying we should defund the police. I couldn't even believe it. And then he came up with an example and he's just like, well, I bet you want a police if you're in your town and you're sleeping in your bed. And I always use the example of the bad hombre. Some bad hombre comes in, breaks into your house, and kills you. I bet you want the police then. And I was just like, yeah, except for that's exactly what happened for Breonna Taylor, and she's dead. So maybe she wouldn't want the police to come into her house while
the
she's...
bad hombres then were the police. That's what happened. Yeah.
And that said example, the bad hombres with the police. So maybe we don't need them, but and it just bothers... Like if he's talking about like O.J. Simpson, it's just like, don't you hate it when you murder your wife, your ex-wife and their boyfriend, or the guy from the restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe boyfriend, friend, whatever he was. Yeah. And OG's like, yes. Yeah, it's terrible. Speaking to a party you won. All right.
I'm glad that not as many people went to this thing as I was really worried that this thing was going to be fucking packed with idiots, but I think that calmer heads prevailed, and a lot of people were like, "I don't want to go there." I think people probably made that decision during the hours of pre-show coverage that this was getting on all the major news channels. I was Rachel and I were just like cleaning and doing odds and ends, so we put on CNN just to have it in the background. And, it's 5 hours before the thing starts. And you can see on the floor, just huge groups of white people just all bumped together.
Yep.
No mask, no anything.
Yep.
It's scattered in the seats and stuff like that. But that was how it was the whole night. So nothing much changed. But we both looked at it and we're just like, God, I wouldn't want to be there. There's no reason I'd want to be there. Like it just looks so dangerous from the viral standpoint.
The South Korean church where one guy infected 500 people, like that's what you're looking at.
Well, I feel the same. Like we talked about the birthday party in Pasadena or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that first big week of coronavirus in California. Like one person went there, they were sick, and they got like 16 people sick.
And probably somebody at that rally joked about, I probably have coronavirus, and they did, and they infected a bunch of people.
Well, and they were getting interviewed. Like, aren't you worried about the coronavirus? And it's just like, I mean, I know people who've gotten sick, and I've known people who died, but I don't think I'm gonna get sick or die. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, that's what we all hope.
Yeah,
like,
funny thing, everybody who died thought they weren't going to get sick and die.
I mean,
Weird.
like, it would be wonderful if I did happen to get coronavirus, if it just peacefully passed. Like, it was just like, you know, I felt kind of crappy for a couple days, but I stayed by myself. And then 2 weeks later, I got a negative test, and I got another negative test, and now I'm good.
All good. Yeah.
I'm past it. I'm good. I would feel a little relieved at that moment that I'm past it. But going in with the prospect of catching it, I'm just like, God, I hope I don't die. And I mean, like, I'm not in the percentages that death is likely from coronavirus, but
I don't know. Respiratory infection, not great for, you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, just in general too. Like, I always worry that like I'm gonna get some sort of like. Sometimes I get sick and I get really sick for like. I don't get sick often, but when I do, it really hits me.
It takes your legs out.
Yeah, like I'll get the flu every 5 years, and it's way worse than anyone else's flu, just because it's taken so long for me to get it. They're paying up for all the time I missed, you know?
Yeah.
I imagine coronavirus would have a similar feeling about it. It's like, oh, this motherfucker. Ready.
Got him. There we go.
Just see the one gazelle in the back of the pack, not keeping out.
Got him.
Coronavirus, like, ooh, motherfucker, you gonna get it.
Did you want to talk about the other thing? The Bolton books?
I mean, I think that that Bolton's book is going to be released. He might still do jail time for releasing classified information, so we got that going for us.
Maybe, yeah.
All the money that he makes from said book might not go to him. It might go to the federal government if he's found guilty of leaking classified state secrets.
And still,
he releases it. Something tells me that with the book coming out today, the day we release this podcast, there's going to be more news that is released tomorrow. Yeah. And I'd hate for us to start talking about all these salacious details we heard and then miss out on the conversation that's happening for the rest of the week. So
yeah.
Follow Twitter for quick takes, but we'll talk about it more next week, I imagine, when we have a better sense of like the whole thing.
Corey has dedicated himself to reading it cover to cover over the next week, and he'll have all the salacious details.
As long as I can steal it from somebody else. I was going to say,
as long as I can walk. There's a Trump book floating around here that needs to be read still, I think. Right?
The problem is that I need I just don't want to give it money. I don't want to give. So people have been randomly like posting like drive links to like the full text of it, and it goes so quickly you can't even get it.
Yeah.
But
you got to get it and download it. You got to click on it and download it.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying like by the time I actually see it posted, it's already like off, and I'm like, fuck. But you know, I'm sure I'll find some sort of I'll see somebody walking with it in their purse, and I'll just yank it from them. You don't need this, Marge Shot. You're bad enough.
Another deep pull. No one born in the 2000s knows who that is.
Remember when you used to say that you had an affinity for Hitler and it would be the end of your career?
Whether or not you're in a baseball team, still.
To be fair, it took two whacks at that tree to make it fall. But
yeah.
She made Hitler comments and then she was suspended for a year. Where she still went to all the games and she was still like involved.
She's a fan.
And then they ran another Sports Illustrated piece where it's just like, so I bet you feel really bad about those Hitler comments. Like, no, not really. I think he's a pretty good guy. I mean, you know. And then said things that all notable races say, like, yeah, he got a lot of bad rap for all the bad things he did. And I'm not saying the killing of the Jews is good, but you know, he built roads.
What about the economy?
Infrastructure. Germany was never better during that time. People were really happy with Germany.
I think he ran on something like "Make Germany Great Again," and he really did. I'll tell you what.
People want to focus on the man's flaws, and I just want to say that not every person is as bad of a person as you make him out to be. That was all Marge Shots.
Yeah, that wasn't Corey.
That wasn't me.
Although I'd like to take that out of context somehow.
God knows when I'm about to. It's the last day of Oscar voting, and they're gonna be like Corey's controversial remarks on Hitler, and then just all the Marge Shot parts just get. There's just a blank anytime I'd say Marge Shot. The ... Hitler has some pretty good ideas.
If you listen to this in the future, hit me up. I'll edit it for you. It'll be great.
As long as you point people to the website.
Yes.
You take the video, put it on CNN. Just say go to otheanthem.com for more.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Wait, which website would we point people to, Corey?
Probably theanthem.com. Corey to theanthem.com. Or the Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. You can find more of me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/Corey Baker Film, and at LegendCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I have a review that is ready to go out for 7500, 7500. I don't know exactly how we're talking about this movie, but it's going to be out there. It's an Amazon original, so everyone who has Amazon Prime can go see it right now. And yeah, that's about it for me.
All right. And of course, you can find more of me at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Tumblr, everywhere at Robert N. Cheek. Make sure you check out robertncheek.com, where you can find links to all the videos that I do. That's at youtube.com/Rob Cheek. Everyman Movie Review, doing 2 episodes a week. The last one we have up is The Gentleman. Nope. I Love You Now Die. Those are the last 2, The Gentleman and I Love You Now Die. And I have a special series coming forward for the next 4 episodes where I meandered through Apple TV, and although they don't have any original movies, they do have some original series. So for the first time, I'm going to do a series review about 4 of the series that drew me to Apple TV and whether or not you should check those out. So that's available at youtube.com/Rob Cheek, along with some other stuff like The Return of Rob Explains Everything. I'm looking to do that this week as a radio show on Spoon. So if you don't have Spoon, you should download it. Come and find me at Robert N. Cheek. And we'll be doing Rob Explains Everything, the radio show, this weekend. It'll also be on YouTube, but check it out on Spoon in its pure format. You'll be able to call in. You'll be able to send me messages, all that kind of stuff. And, of course, everything about me is there on the website, including the books, which are available on Amazon.
Buy Rob's books.
And we have so much exciting stuff coming. Not just the books, not just all of that, but the Anthem stuff. In fact, we're going to get off here. We're going to break down, and we're doing our 2-week check-in on a 4-week project to bring you a ton of brand new stuff for the rest of 2020.
Before we do that, though, I'm going to have to rid myself of the sweat that I've just been billowing inside of while the air has been off.
I was gonna, listen,
all this hot air is just causing.
I keep trying to lightning round it, and it's like the tortoise and the hare, and I just keep trying to hair it up, and you're tortoising it down.
You're over there going like, "Hey, let's have a lightning round." And I'm like, "Hey, you remember Scary Movie?" How about Marge Shot? Anything else random I can pull out? O.J. Simpson? How about that?
Lucky for me, I cut the hair. I'm nice and cool. Cool, calm, and collected.
It's just billowing inside the rat's nest right now.
Yeah, I'm relaxing in my very chill Pair of Thieves boxer shorts. It's lovely. Pair of Thieves. They're not our sponsor, but they could be. Hit us up. Anyway.
Well, I think we've done good here today.
Up until that last part. We've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the The Anthem podcast, part of the Anthem Digital Network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Send air, please. How the fuck is it 72 degrees in here?